I want you to think about the last book you read. Really think, can you remember the core argument? Can you name 3 ideas that changed how you think? Most people go quiet at that question, and that silence is the whole problem. Because you did not fail to read enough. You failed to read correctly, and nobody ever told you the difference.
Part 1. Reading books.
Our thoughts become clearer through comparison with the thoughts of others. It is through the exchange of ideas that human thought progresses rapidly. Therefore, nothing helps us think better than reading books. The art of reading is the art of thinking. No matter how intelligent one may be, it is through reading that one's knowledge broadens day by day. The great minds of the intellectual world, for the most part, arrived at many new and remarkable ideas after reading some books by an ancient author. A single sentence from a book, or an entire volume read through, can sometimes transform our entire way of thinking. This happens often. Books help us think. They spare us the trouble of searching for something that others have already discovered before us. This saves us from useless effort. We need to exert ourselves to build upon what others have found, and thereby shed even more light upon it. Or a book may point us towards something that humanity is still seeking but has not yet found. At the very least, it shows us how a question arose, how people tried to solve it, and how far they have gotten in their search. Seeing with one's own eyes is more valuable than seeing through books. Who does not know that? But what we can observe for ourselves can hardly compare with what books bequeath to us.
For they contain centuries of searching and experience.
If we had to rediscover all that for ourselves, it would take an immeasurable amount of effort.
And above all, we would need a lifespan hundreds of times longer than that of Methuselah.
To read books in a way that truly benefits one's intellect, one must know how to read. There are many people who read constantly yet gain nothing for their minds. They do not know how to read. Their pockets are always full of newspapers and books.
As soon as they sit down, whether on a bus, a ferry, or a train car, they pull out something to read.
They read novels, snippets of daily news, and even advertisements. At the library, they read nearly everything.
Yet they cannot remember what they read, nor do they recall the author's names.
Jules Payot said,
Reading is the most dangerous form of laziness, because someone who is idle and does nothing will feel uncomfortable with their conscience,
but if they read, they believe they are working.
and thus their laziness becomes incurable.
This kind of reading is merely a waste of time. If we are honest with ourselves, we will realize that after a week we remember nothing at all. There is another type of reader.
Those who read while thinking about other things,
They diligently read line after line.
yet their minds wander elsewhere.
This is a bad habit that should not be encouraged. Then there are those who read anything and everything.
But only skim the beginning, the middle, and the end. Then close the book, believing they have grasped all its ideas,
I dare say such a reader understands nothing of the book.
especially if it is a serious work.
In such books, every sentence may pose a question.
The connections between ideas cannot be skipped without misunderstanding,
Their minds flutter like butterflies,
drifting from one flower to another,
and afterward their heads are as empty as a hollow bucket.
retaining no impression at all,
Sometimes they remember things, but only trivial fragments.
with no beginning or end, nothing that forms a coherent idea.
These are all ways of reading that bring no benefit to the intellect. Anyone who wishes to use reading to strengthen their ability to think and judge.
Must never read in the ways described above.
Goethe, in his old age, said to Eckermann,
People do not know how much time and effort it takes to learn how to read.
I have spent over 80 years at it.
And even now, I cannot boast that I have fully achieved that goal.
What art is so difficult? How should the connection between the reader and the writer be established?
So that books help us rather than harm our nature?
What books should we read? And above all, which ones? For there are many ways to read.
Some read to gather information, and some read to pass the time,
Others read to find spiritual comfort in times of sorrow.
or to draw upon a sacred strength that helps the soul become more patient and courageous in facing life's sufferings.
These are ways of reading that cultivate the spirit.
For they change us, and that change benefits our inner life.
Discussing the method of reading is a vast subject.
Too broad to be covered briefly.
But let me outline a few simple rules for reading.
Rules that have long proven effective through personal experience. Part 2, How should we read books?
Rule 1. Approach every book with goodwill and hope. Before criticizing any book,
Give it a little trust and goodwill.
No matter how poor a writer may be, they have labored hard over their work. If you approach a book with ill intent before even opening it,
You are throwing away a good opportunity.
who knows?
In that quiet conversation with the book, it might spark many interesting thoughts in you.
You also need to have at least some prior knowledge or thought about the subject before reading. If it is a topic you have never thought about at all,
You will struggle to understand anything clearly.
you will not be able to tell when the author is right or wrong. Rule 2. Read with engagement and react. Reading is nourishment for the mind and spirit. New knowledge from books only benefits the mind.
When you compare it against what you already know,
The more you already know,
the more you gain from reading.
if you want to truly think alongside the author,
You must bring your own perspective into the reading. Compare the author's thoughts with your own experience.
in quiet stillness,
A thought from the author suddenly stirs your entire soul, like a distant voice that is somehow perfectly clear. This is something you yourself have long believed, but never found the words to express,
believing everything a book says,
or rejecting every single line. Neither is the behavior of a thoughtful person.
reacting to a book is your right and your responsibility, but you only earn that right.
After you have done your best to stand inside the author's perspective.
Remember,
Disagreeing with an author does not mean telling them to abandon their view and accept yours,
it means showing them, from within their own framework.
where they could be more consistent or more accurate.
Rule 3. Read the original text.
Do not rely on translations or secondary studies.
The original text is like a vast open sea. A translation is like a small stagnant pond. Even the best translation brings you only about 1/3 of what the original carries. Reading 100 books about Wang Yangming or Laozi,
Is not equal to reading Wang Yangming or Laozi directly,
secondary research books are still useful.
but only after you have already drunk from the source.
Rule 4. Choose good books. Jules Payot said,
If I could live my life again, I would swear in my youth to read only great books, written by the greatest minds in the world of thought.
I paid dearly for my early years spent wasting my energy on worthless books. If you want a good future for your mind,
Listen to me. Never read rubbish.
a book is truly good when
Every time you return to it, you find it deeper and broader than before.
a book that feels wonderful this month but dull the next.
Is an ordinary book.
A truly good book reveals new depth every time you read it. These are the books worth keeping by your bedside. Rule 5. Read books more than once. Read a book multiple times.
Not to memorize it, but because many books are simply too difficult to understand in one reading.
Keep moving forward all the way to the end. Only then will you begin to grasp where the author was heading. The first reading, find the direction. The second reading, understand it. Zhuangzi once said,
Words exist because of meaning.
once you grasp the meaning,
Forget the words.
the Buddha once told his disciples,
Follow my finger and you will see the moon.
but remember,
My finger is not the moon.
Rule 6. Seek books above your current level. There is little benefit in reading only books at your own level. Read books that challenge you.
Even if you cannot follow everything, you will finish feeling that something in your mind has shifted.
Rule 7. Always form a question before you read. When approaching a good book,
Never read it passively without direction,
choose one question beforehand.
and read to see how the author answers it.
Does their answer align with your own view? If not, who has the stronger argument? This is how reading truly sharpens the mind. Rule 8. Always read the table of contents first. The table of contents shows you the author's path through the subject. Without it,
You finish reading, and your mind is left scattered, with no system or structure.
a famous American professor once said,
No index, useless book.
time is limited. Good books are endless. The purpose of reading is to help one think and judge.
To help one discover one's true self, and to enrich one's spiritual life.
On the contrary,
If one reads in order to avoid thinking, accepting whatever the author says, criticizing because others criticize, praising because others praise, one erases oneself, hiding in another's shadow.
to read in that way is to destroy one's own spirit. To think according to others is not to think at all.
And one who has no thought is not yet fully a person.
Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.